I should have made this video a long time ago, and actually it's about 5 years in the making now. This is my free lightning struck Xbox, and yes, lightning struck as in struck by lightning, and it didn't work, which is why I got it for free. So I got this Xbox from one of my best friends, and the reason why I got it was because I was searching for one to buy from eBay. So at the time, being 2019, they were going for about $25 on eBay with about $25 shipping, and that would probably be like a console only deal. Well, they're not going for that anymore, so I ended up opting not to buy it online and trying to source one locally, because there's a little thing in my country of Jamaica where if you buy an item online that's $50 or over, it attracts a customs fee. Now in your country that might be fine, but in my country the prices are egregious, paired with the fact that I have to use a shipping service that charges by the pound for the item to be collected. For a big old heavy Xbox, that wouldn't work on my budget. Now fat shaming aside, let me give you an example. My girlfriend bought me a PS Vita for my last birthday, and when it came into the country, customs held on to it and wanted me to pay basically the entire purchase price of the item just to collect it. Now of course I fought back, and they are quite usually firm on their pricing. Somehow I won that case and didn't have to pay too much to collect it by the end. But I only got lucky then. Now back to the Xbox. Now as I said, I was looking for one to buy locally, but I couldn't really find one because quite unsurprisingly, retro game collection isn't really too big in Jamaica. But then I remembered, my best friend from high school used to carry on all the time about how he used to play games on his Xbox before it stopped working. So I hit him up and said something like, "Hey bro, you remember that Xbox you used to tell me about that stopped working? Do you still got it?" Because in my mind it would be much cheaper to buy a bunch of small parts than to buy an entire one off eBay. So I think he said he hadn't seen it in a while and that he gave away a bunch of his other gaming stuff. And yeah, I'm saying I think because I'm making this video 5 years after the fact. Now while I don't have the chat logs anymore, I do have this video from him digging through a barrel that he said the Xbox may be in. And obviously he found it. And after he found it, he sent me this picture. And so the next day, July 27, 2019, he brought it to me. And yep, it was filthy, but I knew that was to be expected because it was kind of tossed around and neglected for years due to the fact of it not working and all. So first order of business, get this thing cleaned. Now I took it apart and cleaned the insides first, but I didn't record that due to the fact that I didn't intend on making a video 5 years later. However, I did record this time lapse of giving the outsides a really good scrubbing. And after that, all I did was take it apart a couple times to see if I could fix it, with zero prior knowledge of knowing how to fix anything that has been struck by lightning before that. And while I did probably have all the tools, I just did not have the knowledge. So it just sat a few months with me occasionally taking it apart. But on December 16th of that same year, I got it. 5 months after getting the thing in the first place. But it wasn't really me that figured it out. What actually happened was that I took it apart in front of my late great-grandfather, and he had experience fixing old electronics back in the day, but he has been bedridden for years since then. So I told him what happened to it and I asked him for advice. So his absolute first instinct was to tell me to check for any blown fuses. And I'm gonna be honest, at the time I didn't even know what a fuse looked like. So he said I should check close to where the power is coming from. And lo and behold, there was a fuse there. It did have black shrink wrap over it though, but after I took the shrink wrap off, I could see the fuse. The fuse is blown. Everything else on the power supply looked fine. And the same case with the main board. The only thing that actually looked bad and burnt was that fuse. So even though I wasn't really sure that would fix the problem, I was willing to try because it was cheap enough. Now unfortunately, looking on eBay, I couldn't only buy one of the fuse, I had to buy like 10. But even so, that was fine, it was still pretty cheap. So once those came in, like a wise man once said, out with the old, and in with the new. But as you can see here, I did as best as I could at the time, which was not great, but was functional. It took me a minute to put it back just together enough to see if it would catch fire. Holy shit, it actually works. And that was it. I did it. No, we did it. My Gramps was the final piece that puzzle needed. He told me how to fix a lot of things, and for that I'm forever grateful. Because he wasn't only my Gramps, he was always like a father figure to me. So when he passed a few years ago, I decided that I would finish this thing and finish it in his memory. Because while I did get it running, I didn't do anything with it for a few years. And the main reason was that I didn't have any controllers for it. Because at the time, you see, my friend couldn't find the controllers. He found the Xbox and the cables, but no controllers. And it wasn't until a few days ago he came across them while cleaning. And the disk drive was also a bit iffy, which is also a reason. So I decided to try to fix the disk drive. Maybe it needed cleaning, because it popped out when it felt like, and it would only read disks sometimes, maybe after a few tries. Then multiply that few by 5. Now, I didn't manage to fix the intermittent disk reading, but what I did get to fix is the disk drive coming out. And I did that by dropping this little rubber thing here into some hot water. So knowing that this drive doesn't work so well, I decided I would just mod it. With being young and broken all, I had to wait until I had the money. Yeah, there really wasn't anything I did for quite some time. What I did do though, since I needed some type of USB adapter, and so I made one by hacking up an old IR receiver, as you can see here. Now, it wasn't until May 1st, 2022, about 2 years and 9 months after getting the Xbox, I eventually bought a used pair of S controllers off eBay. Now, these controllers were dirt cheap because the seller had no idea if they were working or not. And I talked to him and he said he just didn't have anything to test it on. So technically they were sold as untested and 4 parts. So I got those and they were pretty filthy. So of course I cleaned them up, and that was another part of the puzzle complete. Around that time I bought one of the games that I really wanted the Xbox for, and that was Forza Motorsport. Now, with being a big Gran Turismo fan for years, it would be my first foray into its competition. And I was really excited. I got the controllers working, I got the Xbox working, and now I got the game. But alas, as per my luck, no matter how many times I tried, I could not get that disc to work in that console. I eventually just played it on my 360 instead, but I didn't really get too far before it gave me a disc error. And to be honest, I still have no idea what that's about. And I'm just glad I own a physical copy now. And seeing that it couldn't read that disc, I started to smell a slight problem. Now, if it couldn't read that disc, would it be able to read the mod disc? I know I asked myself that question, but at the same time, I did end up buying a copy of Splinter Cell, but that got lost in transit, unfortunately. So if that didn't work, I only had one other option: hard modding. And to be completely honest, I didn't want to go that route. I still wanted the Xbox to be physically stock, but I took a chance, and on January 1st, I bought a Softmod Kit, which came with Splinter Cell, a properly formatted flash drive, and also an Xbox USB adapter. So yeah, I pretty much had everything. I had the Xbox working, I had the disk drive opening and reading sometimes, I had a pair of working controllers, and also everything to modify it, including this 80-pin IDE cable, a IDE to SATA adapter, and my 2.5-inch 320GB HDD. Now, if you're planning on modding your Xbox like I did mine, please pay attention to the length of the IDE cable that you're purchasing, because I made a terrible mistake and mine was a little bit too short. So I began. I knew I had to try the disc a few times before it read, but that it did. Unlike the Forza disc, it actually read. So I got it working by following one of Mr. Mario's guides, which means I ended up going with Rocky 5's soft mod, and it was a pretty good tutorial up to the point where it completed and I restarted my Xbox and I got a error 06. Now, what I later learned is that the guide doesn't tell you to relock the drive after unlocking it and setting the keys to all once. Now, I was quite confused and I was wondering if the guide was leading me astray. But after much research and much trial and error, I realized that the mod was more focused on changing the drive. So I was like, okay, I got the Fat Explorer tool, properly formatted my 320GB drive, locked it with a key of all ones, dropped it into the Xbox, and that was it. It worked. Now, there's a lot of information that I'm leaving out here, but because it took me so long to figure all of this out, I even ended up buying a tool that I didn't need to. But hindsight is 2020. So the Xbox booted and I had to remodify it. Luckily, I didn't have to use a disk because I already had the drive connected to my computer. All I had to do was copy all the files that the Xbox required to boot into the soft mod. And from there, thankfully, it was pretty much smooth sailing. And again, not so great disk drive, so I couldn't be bothered with burning the extra disc onto an actual DVD, so I just opted to hunt down a easy way of making that extras disc into an ISO and just running it from the Xbox. With that all done, I was ready to set up one of those things that I had my eyes on for such a long time: Insignia, the Xbox Live resurrection that I signed up for the moment it was out. Even though by that time the Xbox was nowhere near complete and the setup was pretty straightforward and simple, so I got that done in pretty much no time. And even though this video is being posted and created now, this entire modding section took place in February of 2023. So finally I decided to tie it all together with a nice dashboard, just to modernize it and make it look visually pleasing. And so with that, I did a shitload of research and I stumbled upon XBMC4Gamers. And quick side note, First game I tried and the first game I downloaded was Forza Motorsport, because if you remember, I said that I tried to play it on the Xbox 360 and it got to a point in the progression and the disc just stopped working. It gave me a read error code to check disk. Now with my incredible luck, the first ISO I downloaded and installed on the Xbox, being Forza, the same exact one that got stuck on the 360, it got stuck here too. The problem with that one is it gave me the error right on boot, and to be honest that made no sense to me because I didn't make a rip off my personal disk. I got a ISO from a undisclosed source on the internet and it's giving me the same error as my physical copy, but I ended up just fixing it by re-downloading it from a different website. And that's it. My Xbox is done. 5 years, and with the help of my Gramps. So I made a custom splash screen in his honor to remind myself and whoever has this Xbox after me that he played an integral part in getting this Xbox complete. And now my Xbox has pretty much replaced my PS2 as my main system to play on, because well, games just look great on this thing compared to the PS2. And I use component cables on both of them, and in most cases the Xbox blows the PS2 out of the water. However, the PS2 does have a huge catalog and a whole lot of exclusives. Amazing exclusives at that you just can't replicate or can't get on Xbox. But getting the opportunity to experience Forza Motorsport and Halo Combat Evolved for the first time on official hardware, it took me all the way back to 2001. And to be honest, I was kinda impressed what Microsoft pulled off with their hardware, especially for their first console, competing with at the time the big three, which was Sony with their PS2, Nintendo with the GameCube, and Sega with the Dreamcast. It held up extremely well, and even though it didn't outsell the PS2, it did outsell the GameCube, which was not really by that much. But if I were to pick up a console to play some games on from that generation, it would probably be the Xbox, because it's quite simple actually. Xbox has the best showcase of a lot of my favorite franchises. I mean, just look at the difference between Need for Speed Underground 2 on the PS2 and look at it on the Xbox. Not to mention my favorite game of all time, GTA 3. I never even knew this game could look this good. And I have it on my PS Vita, and not even that looks that good. So in conclusion, as long as this took me, it was all pretty much worth it. And now this remains one of my favorite home consoles that I didn't get growing up. Now if you like this video, please leave a like, make sure you subscribe, and also please share the video, and drop a comment down below of your experience with the original Xbox. I'd love to read those comments. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.